Hi guys, this is Ashton Kaylee, and this week I wanted to share with you my thoughts and first impressions on the 12 color set I have here. This is the Petersburg Classic 12 watercolor set. It is a Russian watercolor brand, I believe. The box is mostly in Russian with some bad English translations. Not that I could do better, of course, but I had noticed quite a bit of misspellings upon first glance, and I am very curious to see what these watercolors are actually like. So let's check them out. Alright guys, so here is the Aqua-Kolor Petersburg Classics 12 color watercolor set. I found this on Amazon. It ran me about $13, and the outer cardboard box is just that, all cardboard. It measures about 9 inches by 2 inches by 5/8 of an inch. So lots of Russian on it. I don't know what anything means except for the English translations. I don't know how accurate they are. I really don't know anything about this brand. I just tried to pick something in this price range that looked interesting that I hadn't heard a lot about. The tray is like a hard plastic, which is actually quite nice. And there's enough room to put a brush, but no mixing area. So these little pans are individually wrapped with this little paper wrapper that has the Russian name, pigment information, and stars with the light fast rating. Now the box also has a list of the colors and what the star rating means, but on the box it doesn't actually match up the ratings with each color. So if you care about that, make sure you mark it down or keep those little papers somewhere. Underneath the paper is a thin aluminum wrapping, and each pan is a little plastic dish. It looks pretty similar to a full-size pan. I don't have any here to compare it to, maybe slightly smaller. And we don't need to see the long, tedious unwrapping of all the pieces, so we'll just speed through that as we talk a little bit about what the box says. The box says that these colors are highly pigmented and mixed with gum arabic, which is quite common, and bull bile, which is also known as oxgal, which is not terribly uncommon throughout watercolor history, but maybe a little bit more uncommon these days. Gum arabic and honey seems to be the main stuff put in watercolors. It also says other preservatives, and it doesn't list what those are, so your guess is as good as mine. Alright, so we have all 12 unwrapped, and I have pre-set up a little swatch paper. If you don't know much about swatching, please check out this video on the upper right hand corner if you would like to know more about it and why I recommend always doing it. It's a nice way to get your hands on the paint with little pressure. I like to set mine up with these black lines to see how opaque or transparent the colors are. I'm trying to get each color with a bit of a gradation, and usually I would pre-wet my palette, all the colors, to kind of get them activated, but I want to see how quickly they activate just going straight in with a damp brush. They're activating quite well. It doesn't take a lot of work or color to get them going. So far the pigment load seems pretty decent. The orange didn't settle very well. I didn't get much of a gradation. It just kind of evened out completely. Not like some of the other colors. It's got a pretty decent basic color selection. And you can see here I try to go into the orange again and just reactivate and lighten it up a little bit. Didn't do much of a difference. This color says it's turquoise, but there's actually a lot of yellow to it. It's more more green than any turquoise I've ever used in other sets. Not sure if you can tell that so well in this video, but in person it's very noticeable. And this darker green is just listed as green, which doesn't quite match up my ideas of what a plain green is. And then of course black. So I let this dry, and then I like to go in and see how easy it is to lift colors once they're fully dried. Trying on this yellow, but it didn't seem to really lift at all. The other colors seem moderately easy to lift. Pretty standard for most of my tests here. The turquoise seems to be the easiest one to get some lift out of. Alright, so I'm testing it on a very simple piece. It's nothing special here. I just really wanted to get a feel for how the colors blend and what it feels like. And I don't usually try this on a first example, but I wanted to see how it reacted to some salt. So the first colors I used were that turquoise and some added yellow, and it gives me this nice bright lime green. It can be a little tricky figuring out when salt will work best with certain papers and certain colors, so it does take quite a bit of experimentation. I think I got it at a good time for the cool side. Now the other half I'm going to focus more on some of those warmer colors. And as a first example, I probably should have used as much of the entire palette as possible, but I really just wanted to do something simple and quick to get a feel for it. And salting the warm side to see how it goes. Some spots have not fully dried with the salted area, so I am trying to do a little bit where there's absolutely no salt while that dries up. Alright, it's all dry, so I am trying to gently remove the salt with this little plastic scraper. I don't like to use my fingers too much because of the oils on the fingertips. And I'm going in for another pass. Layering's not working too great with that turquoise color. It does want to blend more with the underlayer, which, I mean, is not terribly unusual. It happens with some colors. I think it's a really good idea to stick to a single palette for a while to really learn the characteristics of how they behave. When you find one you like, it's nice to continue using it. So I found that the warm colors didn't quite take the salt all that well, so I'm trying again a little heavier. I don't know if it was just not having enough water. Maybe it was a little too dry when I did it, but it didn't work quite as well as the cool side did with that salt. My first impressions on this palette is that it's okay. It's not bad for the price. If you are looking for something different to try, this is definitely a decent size palette. 12 colors a nice selection of colors. They're not super saturated. The pigment load is pretty heavy, but I found these to be duller than some of the other colors that have similar colors in their palette. And that could be good or bad. If you don't like super saturated and you want a little bit more realistic, then this one might be right up your alley. I don't know where I stand on it. I tend to like really vibrant and psychedelic looking stuff, but I'm trying to use color a little bit better these days and desaturate a little bit more where appropriate. They blend pretty easily. Again, I don't think it's a bad set as long as you don't mind not having a mixable space directly in that set. This should do you just fine. And with a decent amount of paint for each color there, you have a lot to play with. So I went in for some more details that have absolutely nothing to do with these watercolors. I just felt the piece was a little bit boring as is. This definitely should have been a sketchbook piece, but as I've mentioned before, I don't really like working with watercolor in sketchbooks too much. It just doesn't work well for me because I like to tape down or clip down my paper, and I have a hard time getting that done comfortably in a watercolor book. I really want to do it more. I just haven't found clips that I like to work around. It's just not all that comfortable to me. I wanted to see how these pens actually behave on top of the watercolor too, how much the nib will get dirty and if it flows over. I had a little bit of a hard time with the Uniball pen, and that I think is mostly because of the salt. It got a little caught up on some of that texture, but the colors did show up well against it. And that's it, guys. If you want to give them a shot yourself, go ahead and check out the links down in the description. There are links for you there. I found this set to be decent for any beginner to intermediate painter. You get a pretty good amount of paint for each pan, and it's pretty economical, easy to blend. Although they're not the most vibrant, I think you can make some really nice art with it. Hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you around next time.